Just because the poor will always be among us, don't mean you have to be one of them. If you want to escape poverty anywhere on the planet, you have to figure a way to produce for you or produce something of value to other people, build for you or build something of value for other people, create for you or create something of value for other people, instead of just being used to help somebody else produce. Especially, have you ever been like brand new on a job? You don't know anything. You can't do anything unless somebody tell you. You're not. The reason you feel so silly and weird and crazy and bad when you are new on a job is because you're not producing anything. You're not useful to anybody. You're not building and creating anything on the job. You're just sitting there in the corner doing your paperwork, your first week. You ever been at a job for like 3 weeks and they still haven't given you anything to do? It's because the reason you feel weird is because you're not producing. It's the natural genetic code in all of us as human beings to produce, create, and build. And if you go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home, ultimately depression will set in. You'll be much more miserable than the person who is feeling productive on their job. Because feeling productive, being creative, producing something, some type of output is built into our genetic code as human beings. And you become depressed, anxious, stressful, sad, you name it, lifeless, useless, whatever you name the adjective. You need to feel productive, right? And how do you feel after you've had a productive day? You did something today, you accomplished, you feel better because it's built into your genetic code as a human being to be productive. Therefore, you need to produce something in your life if you want to build wealth. What happens in the spring, right? Flowers grow. What happens if a flower grew and was productive last year and don't grow this year and don't produce anything this year? What do we say about that flower? The flower's probably dead. What do we say about a tree that doesn't produce leaves? The tree is probably dead because the natural inclination of even trees is to produce, of even flowers is to produce. If the land is not producing anything, it's dead. Same thing applies to us as human beings. We have a natural inclination to produce, create, and grow. And when we ain't doing it, we're not at our optimum, right? Because we were built and created to create and build. You're not living if you're not creating anything. You're not living if you don't produce anything. And you certainly ain't built no wealth if you don't have anything you're creating, producing, or building. Right? That may be why you're miserable on the job, because you don't feel like you're creating, building, or producing anything. Something to consider. The problem comes in with this, guys. You have to produce, create, and build your way out of poverty, no matter where you are in the world. Poor people are used to doing the back building labor. That's just point blank. And they're used to doing the work as the workers for money and being the machine by which producers produce. Wealthy people use poor people to produce. Poor people are used as workers by people who are builders to help those builders build. Right? Poor people are used as workers by the creators to help those creators create. Poor people typically are not producing, building, and creating for themselves. They remain dependent on the creativity and ingenuity of other people. That's how you stay poor. Think about it. If you're a warehouse worker and you think the company has your back, but really, they really just need your back to be the producer of the stuff they're trying to produce. Keyword produce, right? Businesses are successful because they are built, produced, and created by people who are producing, creating, and producing the things that we need and use on a regular basis. That's production, right? If you want to be wealthy, you have to start being the producer. You have to start producing something of value instead of just being used to help somebody else produce value to you and being of tremendous value to other people who need you, not as a worker and not as a laborer, but as a producer, as a builder, as the creator. Or you have to be bringing those things to someone else on the planet. If you want to escape poverty anywhere on the planet, you have to figure a way to produce for you or produce something of value to other people, build for you or build something of value for other people, create for you or create something of value for other people. See, Poor people create wealth, but they create wealth for everybody else except themselves. Poor people work and work really hard, but they're working hard for other people to get wealth through them, through their labor. The problem is they're working hard to simply pay their bills and make someone else wealthy because they don't understand. A lot of poor people don't understand and employ the concept of something like using other people's labor to get wealth or using their own talents and skills and gifts to get wealth. And this is why the top 10%, I think I read it was 10%, the top 10% of the world's population holds about 85% of the world's wealth. They're not just worker bees. They're the ones who are employing the worker bees to help them build, produce, and create something of value for other people. And in the process, they're building something of value for themselves. You have to get on the other side of the fence and be the producer, not the worker bee who's helping the producer. Poor people stay poor in many parts of the world, not necessarily because somebody is holding them down physically, but because they don't produce anything, right? And I know some of you may be saying, yeah, but poor people, the poor will always be among you. I get it. Doesn't mean you always have to be among the poor. Just because the poor will always be among us, don't mean you have to be one of them. A lot of poor people around the world just don't produce anything. If they could just find a way to start producing something of value, your chances of being poor become less, much less. Typically, they stay on the other side of the fence called the consumer or the worker bee, and they focus on things like consumption, right? To build wealth, you got to find a way to get on the other side of that fence. Stop being the consumer, start being the producer of something. Think about, okay, I don't want to go too far down this route, but think about from an economic standpoint, right? What are the areas of production? Land, labor, capital. So the question for you is, whose labor are you using to help you produce? Think about that for a second. If you're a self-employed individual, I'm not mad at you, but what are you outsourcing to build your business? Who do you employ? Whose labor is helping you build wealth? If the answer is none, then you're going to either never build wealth or it's going to take you 2 to 3 times longer to build wealth. I'm not mad at that, but we have to understand the power of labor and the power of leverage of other people's labor and the power of building, producing, and creating in general. Other people's labor just helps you expedite all of that. That's all. Helps you go faster. You build wealth way faster anywhere in the world when you build a business. I'm not saying you have to build a business. I'm just saying you have to build something, right? And if you have other people helping you and using their labor, it quickens the pace at which you can build, create, and produce anything. One person can only equal so many units of production, right? One person equals 10 units of production. 10 people are going to equal 100 units of production. You just raised your units of production by 90% because you utilized and employed other people's labor. One person can never produce the same output as 10 people. Never. They don't really teach this type of stuff. You might get a one business course in high school that goes over it for a week. That's it. Building wealth is all about understanding labor. The question again is, what are you producing? What are you building? What are you creating? Let me say it a different way. Who are you producing? Who are you building? Who are you creating? Because it's not just building and creating a business or producing goods and services. Maybe you need to be producing and creating something in other people to bring out some value and offer them some value. That's a form of production and creating and building as well. Because when you really become a producer, builder, and creator, guess what happens? You end up with so much to do, it's hard to do it all by yourself. On this YouTube channel, when I had 5,000 subscribers, I could do it all. No problem. Do it all. Boom. Kind of hard. 2 videos a week, right? 2 videos a week, one live a month. No problem. But when I start helping more people, this YouTube channel didn't help 500,000 people. It helped 3 million people. Now I got to ramp up production. Now I'm doing 2 to 3 videos a week, 2 to 3 lives a week. Guess what? I have to outsource somebody to do my video editing. I have to outsource somebody to help me with thumbnails. I have to outsource somebody to help me with the website, smartmoneybro.com, etc., etc. Because when you start building, you start growing. And when you start growing, you got to understand how to use the leverage of other people to help you grow. But producing, creating, and building is the #1 skill to get rich anywhere in the world. I'm not saying you have to have your own business. I'm just saying you got to be building, creating, producing something. When you do that, you're going to start winning with money. Hey, the best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Guys, take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.